I've been in and out of prisons and jails ever since I was 17. I thought I'd seen it all. Aryan Brotherhood members stabbing guards, gang wars, escapes, and torture. I saw many things that still give me nightmares to this day. "McDonald! 402202!" The guard barked out. I jumped up, a thin mattress under me, exhaling a whiff of stale air. I looked through the bars, seeing Correctional Officer O'Shea. C.O. O'Shea was a morbidly obese man with a penchant for being loud and lazy. I had seen a member of the Bloods punch him straight in the nose before, a scene I still remembered with some humor. O'Shea had crumpled like wet paper on the floor, screaming and crying as more COs ran over and tackled the inmate. "Yeah?" I asked. O'Shea handed me a sheet of paper. He regarded me with his great, colorless eyes. "Congratulations, you're being transferred. Pack your shit. This is your last day at Springfield Correctional Center." You might think I would be happy to get a transfer. SCC was, after all, a shithole. The food was terrible, always cold. The place always smelled like bleach and chemicals. And at night it got so cold with only my flimsy sheet that I regularly woke up shivering. The building was nearly a century old, and the fact that it still functioned at all was a miracle in itself. But to be honest, I was not thrilled about the transfer. I had made friends here and knew the lay of the land. I didn't have to worry about getting jumped or stabbed to death in the showers. As the old adage goes, it's better the devil you know than the one you don't. I was let out of my cell the next evening with all the worldly possessions I owned, which fit neatly into a clear trash bag with some room to spare. I owned some prison clothes, toothpaste, a toothbrush, deodorant, a Bible, a pair of sandals, and a radio. I felt the unbearable lightness of my existence reflected in that bag as it smacked rhythmically against my leg. "Good luck, friend Josh," a rather insane acquaintance of mine named Alvin called out from a cell as I passed down the bleak concrete hallway. "Take care, man. I hope we meet again on the outside," I said, waving, knowing I would almost certainly never see any of these people again. Hell, I hadn't even seen my family in over 5 years. None of them came to visit me anymore. No one wrote me letters or put money in my commissary account or sent me books to read. Well, we're all born alone and we all die alone, I thought to myself as C. O'Shea walked by my side. He was breathing heavily as if he had just finished running a marathon. I looked over at his face, seeing the burst capillaries on his nose from years of hard drinking and the squint of his little piggy eyes. There was a slight gleam of intelligence and slyness behind that ugly mug, though. "Well, amigo," Shay said in his slow, plodding way, "I got a sign to go with you. I'll be your ride-along buddy. You excited or what?" I smiled faintly at him. "There are worse things than you here, Shay," I said. "Far worse." I got on the prison bus in my bright orange jumpsuit. To my surprise, I saw the back was nearly empty. There was only one other prisoner in the back. Shay sat with us to monitor us. We were also handcuffed and ankle-cuffed. A chain ran down and connected the two. I looked over at the other prisoner, a black guy with a shaved head. I think he also shaved his eyebrows. I literally didn't see a single hair on his head besides eyelashes, which he apparently hadn't found a way to shave. Yet. "Sup?" he said, and I nodded. "Sup?" We sat there in awkward silence as Shay plopped down hard on the bench between us. It groaned like a confused old man. "So, what do we know about this place, Shay?" I asked. He sucked down half a bottle of Coke and then he heaved a deep sigh. "I don't know much about it, to be frank," he admitted. sheepishly. It's apparently brand new, though. They asked us to send a couple of people who met certain criteria.
What does that mean?
The black guy asked. Shay gave him a serious look. Come on, Timmy, you know what I mean. Hardened criminals. People with long records who tore prisons like some people tore French beaches. I scoffed. There are far worse people than me in prison, I said. Well, they asked for no murderers or gangbangers, too. Well, I don't know why, but maybe it's some new government program. They apparently call it an experimental prison.
What about me?
Timmy asked. Shay apparently knew what he meant. You're not a murderer, Timmy, Shay said, his lips forming the faintest twitch of a smile.
Well, there was that time my girlfriend got me to drop some acid with it. She went and killed her parents, and we hit the road.
Timmy said fondly, his eyes rising as if he were looking at a hovering angel in the far-off distance. You were never convicted of any accessory charges, so it doesn't count, Shay retorted.
Oh, it counts,
Timmy drawled in his slow, plodding way.
It counts. Everything in life counts. If I've learned anything in the last 36 years, you can never escape anything you've done, good or bad.
I couldn't see much from the prison van. There was a small, shatterproof window in the swinging back doors, but it only gave me a fleeting view of what was behind us. I noticed a dark forest stretching out to the horizon over rolling hills. We drove for a few hours. The three of us bullshitted. We talked about everything from sports to politics to the recent spate of fatal stabbings at SEC. I felt the van stop. I looked out the back window, seeing more endless trees. I didn't see a single house or car on the road we had taken. This is a ghost town, I said. Shay nodded. Yeah, it's dead as Frank Sinatra around here, Shay said, wheezing out a high-pitched laugh at his own joke. This area used to be big for coal mining, but as it dried up and people lost their jobs, they moved away. You know, my grandfather was a coal miner.
Good place to build a prison, huh?
Timmy asked.
If there's no one around.
We were cut off by a clanging alarm up ahead. I heard something large moving, probably the gate opening. Then we were inside. I saw the guard towers and rolls of razor wire for a brief moment as the van pulled into an open garage. The darkness immediately blanketed us. The garage door slowly rolled shut behind us. Shay jumped up. Let's get you boys inside so I can take off your handcuffs and everything, he said, motioning for us to follow. He pulled out a flashlight from his belt, guiding us through the pitch black. The dim light sent shadows racing across the room like groping tentacles. I caught glimpses of strange objects in the darkness. They looked like medieval torture devices. What is this place? I whispered. My voice echoed far too loudly off the cold concrete floor and walls. Those look like torture devices on that table, Shay. I think those bloody things are thumb screws, and that might be a pair of anguish. I pointed to the pear-shaped object with three wicked blades, whose points came together on a dusty shelf. The ornate handle had springs connected to it. The object could be forced into any human orifice, and when the springs were engaged, it would open like a flower inside the person's body, ripping their flesh apart and enlarging that orifice to a bloody, gaping hole. How do you know so much about this? Shay asked, giving me a strange look. He narrowed his little piggy eyes. He continued to fumble with the flashlight, peering around for a door to exit the garage. I looked back at the car and saw the driver just sitting there, his entire body as lifeless and as still as a mannequin. I've read a few books, I said as Timmy interrupted us.
I see a little red light glowing under that door,
Timmy said. Shay focused his flashlight on the spot. Across the room, I noticed what Timmy was pointing at. It was an ancient-looking black door. The wood had started to crack and splinter down the middle. Engraved in silver on the front, it said, "Entrance to North Frost Penitentiary." "Hello?" Shay called toward the door as the three of us moved forward, the steel chains giving my steps a clinking rhythm. Shay reached the antique crystal knob. Timmy and I stood next to a dust-covered brazen bull, its bronze mouth wide open as if it were silently roaring at us. As Shay pulled open the door, crimson light flooded into the garage. Tinted black glass covered the back wall. A speaker button sat next to the window. I looked to my right, seeing a massive sign sprawled across the wall there. It read, "Rules for Personal Conduct at Northfrost. Number 1. The COs without faces don't work here, and we don't know who they are. If you see one, press one of the buttons labeled Emergency Dispatch that are scattered around the complex. Number 2. When the red emergency lights come on, hide until they shut off. Number 3. Do not go into the medical ward for any reason. Number 4. The warden roams the prison every night at 3:33 a.m. looking for human meat. Don't let him catch you."
What, is this a goddamn joke?
Timmy asked, his dark face forming into a scowl. Well... Shay rubbed the back of his neck, looking like an obese little boy had lost his parents. "I've never been here before, but this is all pretty unusual, I'll admit." A buzzing came from the back of the room, and suddenly a garish, echoing intercom turned on.
"Please remove their chains and direct them through the door on the left."
A female robotic voice said calmly in a tone as cool as lemonade on a hot day.
"Your transfer will then be complete."
Shay sighed in relief. "Good," he grunted. "This place gives me the creeps."
Bro, you can't leave us here.
Timmy protested.
What the fuck is this place? Where is everyone? Why is there a room filled with bloody ancient torture devices next to the garage?
Shay put up his hands. "I'm sorry, son. I have orders. I'm just a messenger here. I was told to transfer you here, and that's what I've done." He fumbled around his belt for his keyring. He came over and unlocked the handcuffs and ankle cuffs from both of us. I stretched, rubbing my wrists. I was glad to be out of those suffocating restraints. "Thanks for everything, then," I said, picking up my extremely light garbage bag of possessions and heading for the door on the left. Timmy reluctantly followed behind. The sign on this door read, "To General Population." But when we got to the other side and slammed it shut behind us, I found a hallway filled with more red emergency lights streaming down. An involuntary shiver ran through my body. I remembered those absurd rules someone had put up. What had it said about the red lights? My mind raced for a few moments, then the answer popped up. It said to hide. A man shrieked up ahead, his voice riddled with agony and terror. The hallway split to the right and left, and I couldn't see anyone. Timmy and I stopped.
"Dude, screw this,"
Timmy said, turning and running back toward the door we had come through. He tried pulling it open, but it was firmly locked. The scream came again, louder, closer, but this time it was cut off suddenly. I heard someone gurgling, like a man with a slit throat trying to breathe, and then everything went deathly silent again. The gray concrete floor of the hallway had arrows pointing forward on it. There were no doors here. There was nowhere to hide that I could see. Timmy and I reluctantly went forward. As we got to the intersection, we saw the dead body of a man in a brown khaki uniform. His sightless eyes remained open. They stared up at the ceiling, glassy and still filled with horror. Deep gouge marks bit deeply into the flesh on his back and arms and chest. His throat had been cut or bit open as well. A spreading puddle of blood encircled his body. I saw a dark blur at the end of the hallway on the right. It looked like little more than a shadow. I whispered to Timmy, pointing. We decided to go left immediately. My heart was pounding at this point. I felt like a soldier walking through the no man's land of a war zone. I expected the attack to come at any moment. The hallway to the left had some doors. I sprinted forward as quietly as I could with Timmy close by my side. I read the first door, to a medical ward. No, I whispered, going to the second one. I heard light footsteps behind me. Turning, I saw a creature from a nightmare sneaking up on us in the bloody glow of the emergency lights. Its skin was black and shiny like that of centipedes, and its general form reminded me of a hairless werewolf. It towered over us, its eyes like bone-white cataracts, its claws as long and as sharp as a dagger. Yet its face seemed almost reptilian. It had two small nose holes like a snake and a jaw that unhinged and dropped far below its head. I saw rows of blood-soaked fangs. It gave off a low, gurgling growl that emanated from its chest. With a rush of adrenaline and a sense of mortal terror, I pushed through the second door without reading the sign on the front. Timmy was right behind me. I heard him scream as he fell into me. I found myself in a prison dormitory. We weren't alone. As I hit the ground, I saw a white face peering out at me from behind the bunk bed. The man hiding there saw the abomination behind us and got up, screaming, running away. The creature growled, giving chase. In two powerful bounds, it had rushed across the dormitory and grabbed the man by the neck. I looked back at Timmy, seeing him groaning on the ground. Blood poured from deep cuts on his back. I grabbed him, pulling him up. Let's go, no time to... I said when I was cut off by the sound of a neck snapping. I looked back, seeing the creature had twisted the man's head around in a circle. It raised the limp body to its massive mouth and severed the head in a single powerful bite.
Get me out of here, man. Please.
Timmy whispered as I pulled him back out into the hallway. I looked over, seeing another werewolf creature bounding down the hallway, chasing a man in a prison jumpsuit. I had no choice. I pulled Timmy toward the door labeled medical ward. With a creak of rusted hinges, it opened. We went inside to hide. Maybe there's something in here we can use to bandage you up, I said to Timmy, pulling him down the short hallway toward a room filled with single beds. I didn't know why the rules said to avoid this place. It looked totally empty. Against the back wall, I saw a glass cabinet filled with bandages, rubbing alcohol, band-aids, and other various first aid supplies. I ran toward it. Timmy limped along after me, still groaning.
God damn, I think those claws went down to the bone,
he said. It's gonna be okay, I said as I pulled out some antiseptic and bandages, adding, it could have been a lot worse. The universe would immediately prove me right. I heard a slight giggling from under one of the beds. Timmy and I both froze. Two rotted hands reached out, dragging the mutilated body of a little girl behind them. She had patches of garish black stitches running across her face, hands, and arms. Dark clotted blood dripped from the sites. She wore a gore-smeared hospital gown and had no eyes. I looked into the empty sockets. They stared back at me like two black holes spinning in the void. As she rose, her giggles became full-blown laughter, a hysterical gurgling like a laugh of a dying person. Then she ran at me. I saw the silver gleam of a scalpel in her little hand. "No!" I screamed, raising my hands to protect myself. The scalpel came down, slicing across my palm. It cut deeply. A cold, burning pain ran up my arm. I repressed the urge to scream. At that moment, the red emergency lights flicked off. Bright fluorescent lights popped on, flickering and strobing in rapid succession. Timmy ran forward, tackling the undead girl. But I saw more small hands reaching out from under the beds, hands filled with swords and squirming larvae. I could see the bones of their hands through necrotic patches eaten into their flesh. I ran for Timmy, grabbing him, hauling him up. "Time to go. Now!" I screamed, pulling him forward as more undead boys and girls rose up, all with sharp knives and surgical instruments grasped in their little hands. I felt a sudden pain in my leg. Looking down, I saw a knife sticking out of my thigh. The empty eye sockets of a little boy's face stared up at me, grinning like a skull. I collapsed on the ground as we were surrounded, and I prayed to God then, knowing we would die. I prayed that he would forgive me for all my mistakes, because I was on a fast track to the afterlife and would be seeing him in a few seconds. With a sharp cry of pain, I yanked the knife out of my leg, turning it on my attacker. Then, a gunshot rang out. The head of the nearest girl exploded in a shower of bone fragments and dead maggots. I looked up, seeing Shay standing at the door, his pistol raised. "Come on!" he screamed. "Come on, you idiots! Let's go! Now!" Timmy and I didn't need any more encouragement. As Shay continued to blow apart the nearest of the undead abominations, we limped and scrambled towards him. My leg gave a shriek of pain with every step. We got out of the medical ward, battered and bruised, but still alive. "Why'd you come back, Shay?" I asked through pained breaths. Shay gave me a frantic look. "When I got back out to the car, the driver was dead. His throat was ripped out or something. I don't know. I grabbed his keys and came back for you two. I don't know where we are, but I'm getting you out of here," he explained. I looked at him in amazement. I never thought in a million years Shay would risk his life to save some scumbag inmates.
"So, what's the plan?"
Timmy asked, sweating heavily, his eyes wild and pained.
"How are we getting out of here without dying?"
Shay shrugged. "The door locked behind us when we came in," I said, "unless we can break it down and get back to the car." We passed the buttons labeled Emergency Dispatch under glowing red emergency signs. I wondered if we could get help somehow through them. "Halt!" someone cried from behind us. I looked back, seeing a man in a black correctional officer's uniform. He ran toward us, his hands on the radio hanging from his belt. But something immediately seemed off about the figure. As he got closer, I realized why. He had no face. His entire head was just smooth white skin, without hair or any signs of features. He spoke again, and the voice seemed to come from all around his body.
"You must report to the medical ward,"
the strange figure said.
"We do not allow injured people in the hallways."
"No, we're fine," Shay said, grinning. "See, buddy, I work for the DOC too." He pointed at the identification clipped to his breast pocket. the figure raised his radio to his lips.
"We have resistance near Dormitory 1.
The fake CO said into his radio before any of us could stop him. Shay ran forward, knocking the radio from his hand. The CO instantly straightened up and whipped out his pistol, pointing it at Shay's torso. He fired, and I saw Shay's chest explode, a blossoming flower of blood.
"No, damn it,"
Timmy said, running forward. I saw a silver gleam in his hand, and I realized that he had taken one of the scalpels from the undead and Shay had killed in the medical ward. As the fake CO spun to point the pistol at Timmy, Timmy ran into him, stabbing the scalpel deeply into the CO's neck. They fell together with Tommy on top of the fake CO. His body weight drove the scalpel deeper into the white, featureless skin. Blood the color of soot spurted from the wound. The gun went off, the bullet missing Timmy entirely and smashing into the ceiling. The CO's gurgling death gasps seemed to come from all around his body. I grabbed Timmy. "Get the guns," I said. "They're both dead. We need the guns." He nodded, grabbing the CO's gun and taking an extra magazine from his belt. I did the same with Shay's gun and magazine. I pressed a button labeled Emergency Dispatch as more faceless men appeared far off down the corridor. Then we fled as fast as we could from the hallway, but seeing as we were both in pretty bad shape, it wasn't very fast. At that point, I was just glad to be alive, though. We wandered around the prison, avoiding the faceless COs whenever we saw them patrolling the hallways. They would radio to each other, their voices always surrounding their bodies rather than coming from their heads, which I found extremely eerie and unsettling. A couple of times I saw men in black SWAT suits with automatic rifles gunning down the fake COs. I wondered if this was the emergency dispatch. Timmy and I avoided them as well. We gave a wide berth anytime we heard gunfire. We passed cells with mummified corpses hanging from the ceiling. We passed dormitories where the victims of the strange, werewolf-like creatures littered the floors, rotting and stinking like roadkill. Occasionally I would catch a glimpse of another survivor, a pale face peeking out from some hiding spot, but Timmy and I kept pushing forward, looking for a way out. We were in the sprawling gymnasium, sitting down and resting for a few minutes, when we encountered the warden. We heard a demonic roar from the hallway, a mixing of many strange, inhuman tongues. As Timmy and I sat up quickly, a decapitated body flew into the gym, and a creature from hell followed after it. The body smacked into the concrete wall with a soft, fleshy whack. The warden stood 10 feet tall. He had on a black correctional officer's uniform and a leather visor cap. His face looked like it had no flesh. A thick layer of bone covered it, with 2 reptilian eyes peering out from behind slitted pupils. He hissed, a forked tongue shooting out of his gaping maw. His fingers looked like sharp daggers of bone. A smell like old leather and blood rose from his body. "Shoot it!" I screamed, raising the pistol and firing at its head. The first shot blew off its visor cap, revealing the hairless reptilian skull underneath, but the bullet only gouged the top of its skull. It ran at us with powerful, bounding steps, covering the distance in moments. Timmy and I fired as fast as we could as it got within a few feet of us. It bounded into Timmy like a freight train hitting a car. Timmy's body went flying and smashed against the back wall, with the sound of bones shattering. I slammed another magazine in the pistol as the warden turned to me. We had hit it, and I saw. One of its eyes had exploded in a shower of gore and vitreous fluid, and its head was bleeding badly. I raised the gun, aiming for the same eye and firing. The warden smacked his hand against his face as if he had forgotten something, falling to the floor. I ran forward, putting the pistol point blank against his ruined eye before emptying the clip. By the end, he wasn't moving anymore. "Oh, God," I said, walking over to Timmy. I saw his shattered legs, his broken spine, and his snapped ribs. He coughed up blood. "I'm sorry, Timmy. I really am." His head might have nodded slightly as he died, giving a final death gasp before falling still. I found a ring of keys on the warden's body. In excitement, I ran downstairs and tried the locked door. It worked. I went to the van, pulling out the dead driver and starting it. After smashing through the garage door, I drove it through the gate. It did catastrophic damage to the prison van, but it got me far enough away before the engine gave out. I don't know what kind of prison that was, but I hope I never see that hellscape again. As I drove up to the house, I saw the despondent mother sitting on the dry curb, screaming, crying. A police officer and a couple of neighbors tried to calm her. Nothing seemed to work. Her pale face looked ghostly. Her constant tears dribbled mascara down her face as if she were sobbing black, oily tears. Her hair stuck up in crazy strands and knots. I put the ambulance in park, turning off the flashing lights. My colleague, Amber, sat in the passenger seat. "I'm not sure what we're supposed to do here," Amber said, smoothing a lock of straight black hair back over her ear. Her many flashy earrings showed pentagrams, pyramids, and a tall serpent cross. Her body was covered in dozens of tattoos showing Alex Gray paintings and occult symbols. A serpent, eating its own tail, was engraved in her arm. Each of the scales on the serpent's body seemed to be a different color, some dark rainbow. A solid gold hand of Fatima sat on her chest, the gleaming eye and two-thumbed hand lidless and blue. Amber's name was fitting, as her eyes truly were amber, and her skin was as pale as a vampire's. What can we do at any truly disturbing incident? We're just faceless messengers of a bureaucratic system. Isn't this just a body recovery at any point? Yeah, probably. Well, we can at least declare the time of death, I said, pushing the door open. We might need to give a sedative to the mother. She seems like she's on the verge of snapping. The dry autumn breeze felt cool and clean as it blew over my skin, smelling of fallen leaves, pumpkins, and the faintest breath of winter. I grabbed my bag from the center of the ambulance. The choking sobs and whispered, incomprehensible words of the grieving mother drifted through the breeze like a whisper. "Why don't you go inside? I'll take care of the woman," Amber asked, raising a thin, perfectly plucked eyebrow. "How come I always get the wet job?" I protested jokingly, but I headed toward the front door anyway. Amber gave a low, sardonic chuckle as she stayed close by my side. "If you want to deal with an insane, grieving mother instead," she began, but I cut her off, sighing. "No, I'll go inside and check out the boys' room." The cool breeze suddenly felt too hot on my skin. I felt like I was floating. Something like an invisible skeletal fist clenched my heart. I didn't know what had come over me, but the feeling passed as suddenly as it had begun. Amber gave me a slight nod and walked off. I stood on the front stoop for a couple of long seconds, breathing hard. I was covered in rivulets of sweat. The door stood open a fraction of an inch. Behind it, the house looked as dark as a black hole. The door flew open. I jumped, my eyes widening as I peered into the blackness. A man stood there in a worn long coat. He had very dark eyes and a face like a tired basset hound. I immediately recognized the ugly mug of Detective Larson, our local police department's homicide detective. I was never happy to see Detective Larson. Whenever his watery, drooping eyes swept over a house or a car, it meant something truly disturbing had happened there. Detective Larson was like an angel of death, as any time I saw him, I knew there would be blood, tortured bodies, slashed throats, or gaping bullet wounds hiding behind the bland facade of a normal-looking home. In most cases, I could do nothing more than put the white sheet over the victim's sightless eyes and pale, bloodless faces before calling the time of death. "Detective Larson?" I said, nodding at him in respect.
Anthony.
Looking closer at him, I realized his normal, cold, dissociated stare was gone. He looked genuinely disturbed, far more than I'd ever seen him before. "What's wrong?" I asked, a sinking feeling in my chest. His droopy face looked paler than I'd ever seen it. He wavered on his feet. I wondered for a moment if he might pass out. I took a step forward in case I had to catch him, but he took a deep breath and steadied himself. "Are you feeling okay?"
I think you should go in and see for yourself,
Detective Larson whispered, as sweat trickled down his pale face.
I can't go back in there right now. I need a few moments outside.
He pushed past me into the cool autumn day. I walked into the silent, empty house. With Detective Larson outside, I found myself alone, except for a single police officer standing guard outside a closed door. He saw my paramedic's uniform and gave me a silent nod as he opened the bedroom door with a gloved hand. The smell of copper and iron was strong in the air. I immediately recognized it as the odor of blood. I took a deep breath before I walked into the room, closing my eyes and mentally preparing myself. I had no idea what to expect, but I knew it wasn't going to be pretty. I saw a little boy's room, decorated with superhero posters all over his wall. Toys were scattered in the corners, as if he had just gotten up in the middle of playing with them. Batman blankets covered his bed, but that wasn't the only thing on it. In the middle of the bed there was a puddle of something, wet, red. It reminded me of roadkill that had been run over 100 times on the highway until it turned into a jelly of fetid, rotting gore. It almost looked like someone had exploded. Instead of spontaneous combustion, our town apparently had a problem with spontaneous exploding bodies. This image made me feel like I was standing on the edge of madness for a brief moment. I had an insane urge to laugh, but I quickly choked it down. The boys' clothes were haphazardly mixed into the puddle of smashed organs and bone splinters that soaked into the comforter. The mess of gore slowly dripped over the edges of the bed, and the rhythmic tapping of the bloody drops hitting the wooden floor, marking the time like a water clock. "Oh, God," I whispered to myself. Suddenly, the bedroom door slammed shut behind me. I jumped, spinning to face it. On the other side, I heard the police officer knocking and jiggling the doorknob. "Don't lock the door. This is a crime scene. What the hell do you think you're doing?" I didn't close it." There was a long pause. I heard something give a low, tortured squeak behind me like a rusty door being opened. The police officer slammed his fist against the door a couple more times before he ran off, yelling. I heard a note of rising panic in his voice. I slowly turned my head, feeling odd and surreal. I didn't know what was happening. I caught a glimpse of a trap door in the ceiling, partially opened. A bloody hand with pale, loose-fitting skin held the edge of it. Something wet slithered up there. A face peered through the opening. It had human skin covering its trembling skeletal body. On its head, it wore the boy's face like a mask. The bloody, sagging flesh reminded me of Leatherface. I stepped back in horror, my back slamming against the door. I heard yelling from the other side. Detective Larson's deep, distinctive voice boomed throughout the house. The thing in the ceiling laughed like a gunshot. It released the trap door, letting it swing open. With barely a sound, it jumped down into the bedroom, staring at me. It stood only 5 feet tall, its back slightly hunched, its skeletal arms hanging out in front of it. The naked, pale flesh was stuck to it in segments. The skin covering its face ended at the neck, where a ragged, bloody line stretched across it. The torso skin covering looked tanner, larger, even looser. It appeared this eldritch creature had peeled different parts of the flesh off of different victims. I saw its yellow, glowing eyes flicker like candle flames behind the mask of human skin. It had no pupils and no sclera, but looked like flat, golden plates that seemed to catch every ray of sunlight in the room. It oozed across the hardwood floor towards me, jerking and twitching. Its breath gurgled in its mouth. Black, frothy blood bubbled over its twisted, broken teeth. I closed my eyes, hoping it was a nightmare. When I opened them, the thing was only a few feet away, its golden eyes sparkling with an inhuman hunger. The door stayed closed and locked like a concrete wall behind me. I frantically tried playing with the doorknob and turning the lock, but nothing happened. The yelling from the house was close now, right outside the door. Long strands of frothy saliva dripped from the creature's chattering mouth as it silently tiptoed closer to me. I heard a key in the lock and the jiggling of the doorknob. With my back pressed hard against the door, I instantly fell out of the boys' room when it flew open, landing on my back in the middle of 3 police officers and Detective Larson. I looked up at them, stunned and disbelieving for a long moment. Wordlessly, I pointed to the room. My teeth still chattered. The thing had gone, but the trap door in the ceiling still stood open. Like a pendulum, it swayed gently back and forth above the bloody pile of organs and shredded muscles on the bed. What could have done something like this? I asked Detective Larson as we stood outside. The pale autumn sunlight barely warmed me. I felt like ice water ran through my veins. What was that thing? He shook his head, his jowls shaking.
I don't know about anything, but we'll examine the trapdoor,
he said, his eyes distant.
The last one had a trapdoor in the ceiling too.
The last one? I asked in a hushed tone. What do you mean, the last one? He met my gaze suddenly.
Forget about it. Police business. But I will say that this isn't the first odd death we've seen in this town recently,
Detective Larson said cryptically. Something came down out of that trapdoor. You have to believe me. Probably the same thing that killed that kid. This thing, it wasn't human. Not even remotely. It wears human skin, like a jester might put on a colorful costume. The way it moves is jerky, twitching. It had pure yellow eyes.
Should we get a sketch artist for this?
Detective Larson asked, sarcastically, checking his watch for the time. I looked at him with an expression of sudden coldness. Fine, but trust me, I'm not crazy, I hissed with venom. I slipped my business card into his hand. When you investigate that tunnel up there and you find out I'm right, you can call me and apologize. I turned away without another word, seeing the distraught mother had gone. More emergency personnel had arrived, including the meat wagon, the county morgue's personal vehicle for transporting dead bodies. Amber stood next to the ambulance, her arms crossed, a single eyebrow raised. Let's get the fuck out of here. The kid's dead. Official time of death. I looked down at my watch. Let's say 5 minutes ago, 4:25 p.m. Come on, our shift is ending in a few minutes. I can drive, Amber said, jumping into the driver's seat. Moodily, I slunk into the passenger seat. So, how was it? The kid got turned into a jelly paste, I said, feeling sick at the memory. It looked like he exploded and got run over by 20 tractor trailers in a row. His skin was... I stopped, thinking back to what I had seen. His skin was all gone. Something must have taken it away. Well, that has to be the most disgusting thing I've heard all day, Amber said sardonically as she pulled away, the lights and sirens of the ambulance silenced. So, we have a serial killer skinning people alive and smashing them to bits with a sledgehammer? Skinning children alive, I should say. It's no serial killer, I said, explaining what had happened. How the door had slammed shut by itself, how the trap door had opened, and how something had jumped down. I know what I saw, but it happened like I said. Detective Larson acts like he doesn't believe me, but when I got there, he was just standing outside, and he looked deeply disturbed about something. Far more disturbed than I've ever seen him before. I think he knows I'm telling the truth and is trying to gaslight me for some reason. I always thought Detective Larson was made of iron, Amber said as we turned back to the hospital to park the ambulance and finish our shift. He has never shown any hint of emotion around me. So, what happened with the mother? I asked, curious. I'd started to calm down by this point, and even though I kept flashing back to my encounter with that creature, I felt instantly better as we put more distance between ourselves and that house. Amber looked over at me strangely. Well, she was rambling about how something had been slinking around the house at night, and she should have known. She wouldn't stop crying. She was suicidal, kept blaming herself for her son's death. I ended up giving her a shot of benzos to calm her down, and an EMT took her to the hospital. She'll probably end up in the psych ward for a couple of days. I don't know. She's in a real bad way. The mother was there when the boy was killed? I asked, horrified. If it was a serial killer, how could someone have done that? Skinning a person alive and beating their body into paste has to be loud. It would draw attention, I think. We don't know that the boy was alive when he was skinned, she said. She shuddered. I really hope not. CSI needs to check it out. I'm sure they'll figure out what happened. Yeah, I'm sure, I said non-committally, a sinking feeling in my stomach. I didn't say anything about it to Amber, but in reality, I didn't think the mother was crazy at all. I got back to my house late that night. I ended up sitting in the locker room at the hospital for a few minutes, simply staring at the wall. I couldn't get the day's events out of my head. A rising sense of anxiety seemed to fill my chest. Amber drove me home, speeding, blaring music the entire way. We only lived a couple of streets away from each other, so we usually carpooled to work. The autumn leaves swept past the car. The wind howled like the screaming of a dying child. You want to come in? I'll have beer and stuff if you want one. Sure, she said, giving me a sideways glance. You don't seem like yourself today. I just want to forget everything I've seen today. Period. I said, making my way out of the car. Amber followed close behind. Lethargically, I made my way up to my apartment. I opened a couple of bottles of Spaten and gave one to her. I chugged the entire bottle in a few giant gulps, turning on the TV to shatter the eerie silence that seemed to cover the apartment like a storm cloud. As I went to my room to change, my heart leapt into my throat. The trapdoor I had never seen before stood in my ceiling, the rusted brown metal gate swinging open as if it had just been disturbed. For a long moment, I could only stand there, stunned and disbelieving. I hoped I was hallucinating, that I had gone crazy. I turned to run out of there. I opened my mouth to scream at Amber to run, to get out of there immediately, but a skeletal hand with fingers like sharpened stakes shot out from under the bed. It wrapped around my ankle. Where it touched me, I felt a shock of freezing agony, as if liquid nitrogen had been sprayed all over my skin. Amber! Run! Get out of the... But that was all I had gotten to say before I slid away under the bed. The bright, normal world all around me grew smaller and smaller as I disappeared under the blanket hanging over the side. I looked back, seeing that naked, hunchback abomination grinning at me. Jerkily, it slithered forward, its bony hands and feet clicking softly against the floor. It crawled right on top of me. Something like freezing wind seemed to emanate from its entire body. A smell, like ozone and rotting meat, hissed from its lips. I heard the bedroom door slam against the wall. Help! For God! The creature clamped its hand down on my mouth. I felt small pieces of rotted flesh and flakes of ancient blood fall like dandruff all over my face. Hissing, it lowered its gnarled, gnashing teeth to my ear.
Anthony?
Amber said, sounding scared and uncertain. I heard her footsteps heading over to the bed. I continued to fight against the abomination, trying to push it off me, continuously twisting my head away, but I knew it was just playing with me. If it wanted, it could tear my entire throat out in a matter of seconds. As Amber went to lift the blanket hanging over the side of the bed, the creature snapped its head forward and bit my nose. Blood exploded all over my face. The cartilage broke, with the sound like cracking eggs. I hadn't realized what had happened for a long second, until pain like lava ripped its way through my body. I shrieked, fighting hard. Amber threw the comforters off the bed. My vision had turned white with agonizing, brutal pain. Warm crimson streams gushed from my destroyed nose. I felt a hand grab me by the shirt collar. Suddenly, I was sliding out from under that dark pit of horrors, the abomination still writhing, struggling on top of me. The loose human skin it wore made it hard to get a hold on it, and as the bloody covering kept sliding under my hands.
Get off him, psycho!
Amber shouted as she pulled a pocket knife out. She flicked it open and brought it down hard in the back of the creature's neck. All 3 inches of the silvery, gleaming blade disappeared into the thing's body, and it screamed, a sound like an ancient steam whistle about to explode. It writhed off me, its arms and legs slithering and writhing like snakes. The thing tried to drag itself back toward the trapdoor, but Amber had other plans. She put her heavy boot on top of its back, pushing it to the ground. After meeting my eyes for a brief second, she knelt down and ran the sharp blade across the abomination's throat. Black blood, the consistency of maple syrup, flowed like a waterfall from the thing's slashed throat as its gurgling and hissing died down to nothing. God, it hurts, I said, grabbing my mutilated nose. Did that thing bite it off? Do I still have a nose? Amber? Tell me the truth. She gave a crooked half smile at this.
Yes, you still have a nose, Anthony,
she said, rolling her eyes.
Except for the piece at the end. He got that. I think you'll have some scars, sad to say.
That's okay, I said, trying to stem the bleeding. I was never very pretty anyways. I'm just glad to be alive. Amber went over to the master bathroom and grabbed a roll of toilet paper. She gave it to me. I started tearing off chunks, trying to stop the bleeding from my destroyed nose. It still burned like it was on fire. I can't believe I'm not dead. I thought I was a goner for sure. I owe you my life. She winked at me.
I'm sure you'll be able to pay me back soon,
she said, as clunks and bangs came from the trap door above us. I looked up at the black square in the ceiling with its rusted hinges and ancient metal door, the pain making my eyes water. Amber glanced up as well, as another one of those pale, naked things silently slipped out, landing on top of her. She screamed as it knocked her to the ground, clawing and biting. Weak from the blood loss and pain, I tried pushing myself to my feet, but I was too slow. In horror, I watched its sharp, bony fingers come up and stab into the side of Amber's neck. They disappeared inside her. Her eyes widened, her mouth opening in a silent scream as bright arterial blood spurted from the wounds. Spatters of it covered my face and chest. Still hissing with laughter and grinning behind its mask of human skin, the abomination continued digging its stake-like fingers through her neck, wiggling them to widen the wounds. Feeling sick and weak, I couldn't watch anymore. Wet, sloshing sounds followed me into the hallway as I crawled away. Another one of those abominations jumped down, sprinting after me. I knew I was doomed. Yet, as its pale, naked body got close to me and it gave a gurgling hiss of victory, something strange happened. It slithered over me on all fours, but when it came into contact with the spatters of Amber's blood, it screamed and pulled away. Its steam whistle cry followed me through the front door. As I looked back, I saw more of those things crawling out of the trapdoor, using their sharp, scalpel-like fingers to take off Amber's skin. Her horrified eyes continued watching me, and as the light in them faded, fresh puddles of blood and discarded meat soaked the floor. I ran to my car, hyperventilating. I called Detective Larson, told him to go to my apartment, and that it was happening again. He had many questions, but I turned off my phone and drove out of there without a backwards glance. I abandoned everything I owned in that town, renting a motel in the next state over. I heard the local news talk about the spike in recent murders and disappearances in Frost Hollow. I ended up going to talk to a college professor who supposedly knew about demons and fae and other supernatural creatures, still wearing a bandage on my face. She was a strange, bird-like woman, advanced in years, with glasses that magnified her eyes to owlish proportions. She invited me over to her house, a stuffy place with odd books on the occult and powerful talismans from voodoo and shamanism plastered over the walls. As I told her everything that happened, she started playing with her tarot cards, flipping them over. Her wrinkled, serious eyes took in the images without a word.
This is your reading,
she said, nodding to the cards. I told her I didn't want to know. She sighed.
The blood of a friend who gave their lives either intentionally or unintentionally to protect someone else is a powerful thing,
she said, flipping over the next tarot card. The Jester. I saw how he wore his colorful clothes, adorning himself in blood red and yellow cloth. I could only think of that thing, slinking around in the tunnels behind those trapdoors. Yet, if it continues following me, how could I possibly escape next time? She shrugged, her face unconcerned.
We all get captured by death eventually. You can't run forever, after all. Perhaps next time you will be the one giving your life to protect someone else.
I shuddered at the thought, my body cold. As I drove back to my motel, I wondered if she was right. Would they catch up with me in the end? I opened the motel room door. There, in the ceiling, I saw a rusted trap door. its hinges giving a tortured shriek of rusted metal. A small face, wearing dead, mummified skin like a mask, peeked over the edge, grinning. My stepdad could own a private island if he wanted, but he's still here in our musty old house. If I went upstairs to where the bedrooms are, mine would probably still be exactly as I left it all those years ago. We were together in the gloomy old parlor with the huge fireplace and the cobwebbed waterfall chandelier. He had just paid my bail, and I had driven over once I'd gotten out. Thanks would have been in order, but I skipped that and went right to asking him why exactly he had done that. My stepfather was now a faded version of the man I had last seen 18 years ago. The oxygen tank and the wheelchair had practically become part of his anatomy. Ben, why would you do that? I mean, you've been watching the news, right? You know what it is I've been accused of. Accused, you say? Ben replied, between puffs on his oxygen mask. Yes, Ben, accused. Ben, why am I here? You were always a total disappointment to me. I loved your mother. I wanted to be a father to you, but you refused everything I taught you. You're a fabricator, a flim-flam artist, and yes, I have been reading the news. It looks like it has finally caught up with you. I turned to leave. Don't! He shouted, loudly enough to startle me, then started coughing. Don't, Larry, he said more calmly this time after the coughing stopped. Wait, don't leave. Hear me out. Why should I? Money. Considerable amounts, if you just do something for me. This made me turn around. What is it? I need your help, he said, and took another long draw on the oxygen. You've got 1 million employees. Pay a crony. No, it's too important to me. I need someone I can trust. I feigned doubling over with laughter. You just got done saying, I know what I said, Ben rasped, and then took another hit of oxygen. There's trust, and then there's trust. I don't trust anyone to be trustworthy, but I trust you to always be ruled by your laziness, myopia, and greed. Ben, I don't have to take this from you, you know. Name a price. Think of what it will cost to actually get you out of every mess you've ever put yourself in, and then double it. And that is what I will pay you for 1 hour of your time in this house. This gave me pause. What do you want me to do, Ben? You know what it is I do, don't you? You know what my company does? Sure I do, Ben. Biochemical something or other. All my life, Ben said, but speaking like he was speaking to someone in the corner now instead of to me. All of my one single wretched life, all I have tried to do is render one positive change to the underlying equations of this woeful gray world. Now, haven't you done that? I mean, aren't you a what the hell good does all that money do for me? Ben said, I can't even breathe properly. I tried to come up with an answer while Ben took more drags on his oxygen, but couldn't think of any way to respond. There's been a side project that I have kept quiet about and funded for the last 20 years. Only my 2 most trusted people ever worked on it with me. They both died, suddenly, unfortunately. But their great work was complete before that happened. Now I can finally see the fruition of what I started. Died? How did they die? Ben did not answer that. Instead, he went on. We will never truly understand what electricity is, yet we have hijacked its outward manifestations successfully for the last 100 or so years. We will never truly really understand gravity, yet even now we are creating new technologies that harness gravity waves. Likewise, we will never really know and understand biology, not at its most root levels, yet we can study it, study what happens when things go wrong and it breaks, and gain insights from that. What kind of insights? Ben became aware of my presence again, looked up and locked eyes with me. Indefinite, repeatable youth. Full reset. What? How? Ben held eye contact and said, Vampirism. You have to induce vampirism in a person and then reverse it. That's how it works. I shoved my hands into my pockets and drew in a breath. Okay, Ben. Thanks for your time. All the best. I'm gonna go now. Now, wait just 1 second. I'm the one that spent a lifetime studying this stuff. Certainly you can hear me out. Okay, Ben. Go ahead. What in the world is it that you're talking about? Everything. About us, about humans as an organism, our beginning at one point, functioning over time, and then dying. All of it is driven by an underlying biochronology that's deeply tied to the laws of the physical universe. Human biochronology is like an hourglass that has been superglued to the table. With vampirism, it shatters the hourglass, obliterates it. I was too stunned at what I was hearing to protest or interject, so he went on. You reverse vampirism, Ben said, his eyes gleaming a bit as he did so, by rebuilding the hourglass. Thing is, when you do that, you can set the chronology to any period in the person's biological history you want. I said nothing. You think I'm out of my tree, don't you? Ben, absolutely. I believe that you are completely bonkers. Neither that or you're getting some kind of kick by messing with me. Goodbye. The money's real, he said as I began to turn. That stopped me. The money is very real. Even if I am just a delusional old man having one last chuckle before he dies, the money is very real. I turned back around and faced him again. What do you want, Ben? Ben beckoned me closer. I stepped up to his wheelchair. He grunted slightly as he fished into his left pocket of his robe, then held out a small envelope, like what they give you cash in at the bank. I took it from him. Careful. Absolutely do not drop what's in there. I gently tipped the envelope so that its contents rolled into my hand. 3 pills of an unearthly green hue. Okay, now put those back, carefully, and put it in your pocket. What are they for? They reverse vampirism and reset the person's chronobiology back to certain stages. No, I'm not a vampire. Of course you're not a vampire. You're the bait. You take the pills, give them a minute to dissolve, and let the vampire bite you. When the vampire drinks your blood, their chronology gets restored, reset. They're human again, at whatever age you want them to be. At that, I genuinely laughed. Ben, what the actual hell are you talking about? Oh, for pity's sake, Ben exclaimed, tossing up his hands and then gripping the arms of the wheelchair. For the first time, what I saw before me was not Ben the powerful, who I had grown up under, but a very tired, discouraged old person who was sick, run down, and stuck in a wheelchair. Stop thinking. If you want the damn money, stop thinking. Your thinking is absolutely no good to anybody. Stop it. Okay, Ben, calm down. Just tell me what it is you want me to do. Look, when they attack a victim for the first time, they never bite at the neck. That is for at the end, when they want to kill them or turn them into another vampire. The first couple of times, the vampire always just takes blood from the ankles or the wrist. They feed on you a bit and then they go away. This'll be your first encounter with the vampire. She'll just bite your wrist. You'll be fine. But you will have taken the pills already. They will be in your bloodstream. That's a necessary step in the chemistry. Then the vampire drinks some of your blood, and that leads to the reset. You want me to take these crazy pills and then let some wacko bite me? Ben rubbed his pale, sunken face with his emaciated hands. And then he looked up at me. You want the money? Okay, Ben. Where is this person? You said it was a she. Is she here, in the house? Ben turned away from me and looked at the hallway. Across the hallway from the wide entry of the parlor, the ancient wallpaper was interrupted by a narrow door that led to the basement stairs. I got her in the basement. I was completely shocked when Ben said this. What? Damn it, Ben. I'm already facing charges, and you tell me you got a woman locked up in your basement? Ben's hands came up, pleading and placating. Stop. Just stop, Larry. You don't have any true idea what's going on here. Oh yeah? That one's not too hard to figure out, Ben. You think you can do anything you want. Now you've got a lady locked in your basement. He told me that was absolutely not true. Oh, okay. So if you don't have her tied up or something, call her up here, Ben. Call her up here right now so that I can see that she's fine. 1882. I stopped. Now what in the world was he talking about? 1882, Larry. She was born in 1882. How's that possible? She served as a volunteer nurse, International Brigades, Fascist Spain, 1937. What? Who? The lady you got locked up in the basement? Indeed. She was turned while helping fight a war in old ancient Spain. Came back home on a hospital ship while she suffered through the conversion. Doctors all thought she had asymptomatic bubonic plague. She disappeared as soon as the ship made port in Boston. What are you telling me, Ben? I had her tracked down. It cost me millions. 18 people died in the process. 18 people? Who killed 18 people? Ben rotated one hand down and then extended an index finger toward the floorboards. This is insane, Ben. I'm leaving. I'll let her out. I'll let her out right now. How's that sound to you? Yes, Ben. If you've got someone locked up anywhere in this house, you need to let them go abso-damn-lutely right now. Okay, we're getting somewhere. You take 2 of the pills you have in your pocket. Just 2. Then you come down into the basement with me and I'll let her out. But only take 2. If you take all 3 pills and she bites you, it will reset her way too far back. She wouldn't be viable outside of the womb. I hesitated when Ben turned his chair in the direction of the kitchen. Larry, let's go. Come on, you're about to make a lot of... Ben grimaced, burped, grabbed his stomach, groaned loudly, and lurched forward in his wheelchair. Ben! I cried and ran over to him. Ben was clammy to the touch and not breathing. Cursing and praying, I tore out my cell phone and I dialed emergency services. A few hours later, I was standing by Ben's hospital bed. The old man was nothing more than a lifeless, deflated body under a sheet. Naturally, I felt bad for him. My alcoholic mother had been a total monster towards him their whole marriage, and he just took it silently. I would have left. Hell, I did leave. Ben's foot moved. I saw the summit of his big toe rotate toward me under the sheet. I stood frozen and waited for that foot to move again. A growl came out of Ben that was too low, and the cadence was so slow that it sounded almost like a gurgle. It made my skin crawl to listen to. It petrified me. I heard a nurse quietly pat in, then come up to me and say,
"I'm so sorry for your loss, Mr. Amherst."
I could barely respond, and only in a whispery squeak. "It's Ajumian. My stepdad is Mr. Amherst."
"Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ajumian."
"Hey," I whispered to her without moving or turning my head. "Hey." His foot moved.
"Oh, you poor man. I am so sorry."
She walked around to the other side of Ben's bed and checked the monitor.
"I am so sorry, Mr. Ajumian. That's not what you'd think. Involuntary muscle spasms happen all the time this soon after someone passes. No, I am sorry, sir. It doesn't mean anything."
"Okay. Sorry. Thanks." She assured me that if there was anything she could do, she would be right outside at the nurse's station, and to take as much time as I needed. She left, and slowly I resumed my composure. I stood, just breathing for a few minutes, and then that growling started up again. Perplexed, I leaned forward, very slowly, and with one hand, very gingerly, lifted Ben's upper lip away from his teeth. Ben's canines were several millimeters longer than they had been earlier in that day. Of that, I am absolutely certain. I snatched my hand away. Perhaps I was in a fugue state after what I had just seen and heard. I wandered like a zombie out into the hospital hallway. An orderly accidentally struck my shoe with a laundry cart, and that helped snap me back to reality. He apologized profusely. I wasn't listening. I was gazing intently over at the nurse's station. A state trooper in full uniform was speaking to one of the nurses. I recognized him as one of the officers involved in the case against me. This was not someone I wanted to run into right now, so I turned away and quickly took a circuitous route through the hospital ward until I came upon an elevator lobby. I made it to my car and left the hospital parking lot. I stopped at the discount grocery store and picked up a six-pack. I drank and drove back to the old house. There was not much time. Pretty soon someone from Ben's company would get word of what happened and send their people to the house. I parked my car and went in through the front door I'd left unlocked when I went to the hospital, following the ambulance that had taken Ben away. Nobody was there. First, I went to his study on the top floor, and I rifled through every drawer and cabinet that was not locked. I did the same with his bedroom. My efforts were met with mixed results. There was no cash anywhere. There were no scraps of papers with combinations or passwords written on them. But I did find a loaded handgun, a Colt Diamondback. Might be worth $30,000 if I can move it. When I went downstairs, I meant to continue my search, but I couldn't keep from standing at the top of the basement steps and looking down into the darkness below. I took one step, and then another, then reached up and flicked on the light. Without really knowing why, I continued all the way down. All I saw at first was the old boiler and a couple of antique chairs. I turned to go, and I heard a woman's voice call my name.
"Mr. Ajumian?"
The voice was so clear it was like the person was standing right beside me, quavering yet very articulate.
"Mr. Ajumian, please, help me."
"Who's there?"
"Go around the boiler."
I peeked around the boiler and saw a large industrial-sized screw jack bolted to the floor. Its shaft was attached to a spot on the far wall.
Please, Mr. Ajamian, Mr. Amherst has me trapped. There's a trap door in the wall. You have to turn the screw jack to open it.
Oh, okay, I cried and ran over to the screw jack. I put both hands on the wheel and started to turn it. Hey, I had nothing to do with this. You understand?
Oh, I understand, Mr. Ajamian.
The person assured me in a sweet, understanding voice.
Mr. Amherst trapped me in here. Please let me out. I've been stuck here for days.
As I turned the wheel on the screw jack, there was a barely audible scraping sound as the shaft rotated, and an 8-foot section started to pull away from the rest of the wall. The woman called out,
Please hurry. I've been trapped here so long. I'm so hungry.
That gave me pause. I stepped away from the wheel and walked up to the partially open door. I put my ear up against the cold concrete and tentatively ran my fingertips along the edge of the massive door. You're not going to hurt me, are you?
Oh, dear me, no. I harbor no ill will towards you at all. I just want to be released from this prison.
I returned to the wheel and continued cranking the door open.
I haven't taken a sip nor nip of food in, gosh, I don't know how long,
she was saying as I labored to get the door further and further open. Something moved at the edge of my vision. I looked up at the door and froze. What looked like the black quivering tips of 4 giant spider legs were emerging at about shoulder height from behind the massive door. I squeezed my eyes closed, shook my head violently, and opened them. A hand had now appeared from around the edge of the door. From the bony wrist to the ebony fingers to the tip of the blackened, rotted fingernails, and that hand was freakishly long.
Keep turning.
I was suddenly covered in a cold sweat. I let go of the wheel and stumbled backwards.
Keep turning,
said the voice again, and a lot lower this time. I intended to get up the basement stairs as fast as I could and out of the house.
Keep turning, miserable chattel!
The voice roared like flames swallowing a building. I ran, and as I took the stairs, I heard a grisly, ripping sound like the tearing of cloth and flesh coming from the partly open door. As I charged up the steps, I could tell I was being pursued. The hungry panting I heard closing in on me from behind sounded human, but the clicking and the clattering sounded like the footfall of a gigantic spider. Not able to bring myself to look back, I put everything into reaching the top. It overcame me. It was not taking the stair steps like I was. It was running along the ceiling, over my head. It came down in front of me in a crash as I reached the hallway at the top of the stairs. I covered my eyes. I absolutely did not want to look at it. There was no sound, just my desperate and ragged heaving and its avid, hungry panting. I dared open my eyes. The face that stared back at me through the tattered locks or iron gray hair looked like one of the damned pulled straight from hell. The skin was cracked and blasted like rolls of papyrus from a pharaoh's tomb, blackened and desiccated by nothing but time. The eyes were drops of poisonous yellow with frigid white pupils. The expression on that face was one of sick, wicked amusement and diabolical desire. A sudden swoon came over me. Everything went black, and I tipped backwards. One iron hand grabbed the cloth of the front of my coat and shirt with an iron grip, That ripped several of my chest hairs loose with it. A pain brought me back.
Oopsie. Can't lose you like that just yet.
I could not look this horror in the face. I remember forcing my gaze down, away from that face, at the print on its torn dress. Glimpses of ancient and fetid-looking skin beneath it.
Why, don't you think I am just a dish?
Its creaking voice crackled at me.
Aren't I beautiful?
I think I was squeezing my eyes shut at that point. Anyway, the abomination flung me like a limp toy into the living room. I landed on the hearth of the old fireplace, falling heavily in a heap and groaning in pain from the impact. This elicited a mirthless, chittering laugh from the fiend. I saw its ghastly, translucent bare feet begin to step over the toppled furniture towards me. Terror-stricken, I still managed to fish out the Colt Diamondback. Emboldened once it was in my hand, I got partially up and aimed at the beast. "Get back! I'll shoot you!" It did not even pause. Instead, it kept walking towards me across the opposite rug, leathery lips parting in a cynical grin, displaying long, sharp teeth.
Oh, so apt and gallant. Well, my stalwart protector, I certainly hope you loaded it with silver bullets.
I fired 2 shots into its chest, then 2 into its stomach. No effect. The smile got broader, showing more teeth. Zombie. My terror-addled brain thought, gotta go for the head. I fired my second to last shot and then it hit home. This caused the head and upper body to rock backwards from the force of the bullet's impact, but then the gruesome head counterbalanced and whipped back towards me. In an instant, my hand, gun and all, was being crushed in the gnarled hand of the monster. The pain that shot all the way up to my shoulder was tectonic. I shrieked, although I knew perfectly well the isolation of my stepfather's house made that a futile act. I tried with my other hand to wrestle free, but I might as well have been wrestling with a grinning, demented marble statue. To my horror, I saw the bullet hole in its forehead seal shut in a matter of seconds.
Fun, fun, fun. That's the cat's pajamas.
The abomination croaked, then shook the gun loose and bit off my right index finger. I howled in shock and pain and collapsed back onto the floor, clutching my mauled hand to my chest. It had its head tilted back. It was letting out a moaning sigh of relief as it sucked the blood from the severed finger. I took that chance to grab the envelope Ben had given me, swallowed all 3 pills. There was a loud, sudden click, and the creature was staring down at me.
Shadow, what have you done?
As fast as you can blink, it was sitting on my stomach, with one hand pressing on my chest. The damn thing was the size of a small woman, but I felt like a car was sitting on top of me.
Spit!
It struck me across the face with its free hand.
It
struck me backhandedly this time.
Out!
It went as if to strike me a 3rd time, but I convulsed. One bright green pill appeared protruding from between my lips.
Ah!
The fiend said, plucking up the pill in its sepulchreous fingers.
What's this? Trying to escape me again, are you?
With a withered, beaked nose, it sniffed at the pill. Then it shrugged nonchalantly and tossed the pill away into a corner. Before I knew what was happening, my neck was being crushed and torn in its jaws. I could feel my own blood scatter out all over my shirt and all over the face and chest of the monster, who giggled and burped, even as it held me clamped in its jaws, sucking out my blood in great gobs. Then the beast suddenly released me. It let out a terrible shriek, then, with a tremendous vomiting groan, still straddling me on the floor, it started whipping its hair and arms above its head in a superhuman frenzy. I could hear the bones crack in its neck, arms, and jaw as it did this to me. It sprang off of me, landed supine on the floor, and went rigid like someone having a seizure. Then it rolled over, screaming and wailing, and started crawling around in a circle on all fours like a burn victim, maddened from the pain. Black goo pulled up in its eyes and dripped in thick, shiny strings onto the floor. Finally, all motion finally ceased. It was sitting on its shins with its back to me, its matted hair plastered to its back between delicate-looking shoulder blades. I lay there, too scared to move or make a sound. Suddenly it leapt to its feet, took a running leap at the door at the end of the parlor that led into the kitchen, and crashed through it. I heard drawers being ripped open and objects spilling on the floor. Then I could hear the sound of frantic, wet chewing. I got up and stumbled to the doorway of the kitchen. She heard me. She stopped gorging for a moment, and then looked up at me with an expression of utter helplessness. The black goo had stopped flowing. It had left massive streaks down her face like mascara, but beneath that, beneath all of my blood coating her face and her shirt, beneath the skinned knees and skinned elbow, beneath the bread and donut crust coating her lips and her now very human teeth, I saw someone in the full bloom of her early 20s. Full reset. Ben, you beautiful, brilliant bastard. Blood was still leaking between my fingers where I held my good hand compressing the wound on my neck. I was starting to lose the feeling in my hands and feet. Beginning to panic, barely able to use my injured right hand, I managed to pull out my phone and started trying to call the emergency services number. Then I stopped. I wheeled back my arm and threw the phone against the kitchen wall so hard it knocked loose some plaster from the wall and shattered. Still clutching the side of my neck, I wheeled around and stumbled back into the living room. Getting down on my knees, I clawed around with my free hand in the dust and cobwebs that had collected near the baseboards. Filth caked the still bleeding stump where my index finger used to be, but I kept clawing until I found what I sought after. The third pill was still intact. I held it before me in my ruined, broken hand. It seemed to glow with the spectral green light. I placed it carefully in my shirt pocket. If I can just get this bleeding to stop, now I'm gonna be so stinking rich. Hey guys, special thank you to bloodredpitchblack for allowing me to read this great story. If anyone would like, there's a link to this story as well as a link to this writer's website in the description of this video. Be sure to let us know if you'd like to hear more by Blood Red. Also, thank you for watching, and have a very good evening.